Hey, this is Vince Papale. I'm a fellow Hawk brother, and of course I'm the guy from Invincible, and you're listening to Sports and Rants with Brett and Pants right here on 1851, my Hawk brothers, and the Hawk will never die.
And we are back live with former Patriots quarterback Steve Grogan. How you doing today, Steve?
I think I'm doing okay, guys. I've gotten to the age where I don't check very often. I find things I don't want to find, so...
Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
All right, so we just want to catch up with you, see what you're doing now, and talk a little bit about your career. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right, so have you been following the NFL this season?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, what are your thoughts on the Patriots so far? They had a rough start, but they seem to be playing much better now.
Yeah, they started off a little shaky. They're playing real well right now, although they've had a couple injuries on defense that are going to hurt them. With Mayo being out and Jones, the defensive end, being out, I think that'll hurt them. But I think we'll find out a lot about them Sunday afternoon when they play Denver here. That's going to be quite a test. And then the next 4 or 5 weeks, they've got some pretty rough opponents. So the next 4 or 5 weeks are going to tell us a whole lot about what New England Patriots are going to be like. And I still think they're a playoff team. And as long as Tom Brady and Bill Belichick are around, they will be.
Do you still live in the Patriots area? Do you still hear all the Patriots talk?
Oh, yeah. I live about 5 miles from the stadium, so
okay. What do you do now?
I follow them closely.
What do you do now?
I have a sporting good business in southern Massachusetts. We sell equipment and uniforms to high schools and colleges and youth leagues, so it's been it's been a little over 20 years now.
How'd you get into that business?
I had always planned on coaching when I got out of football, and I interviewed a couple places and kept running into dead ends and closed doors. And the sporting goods business had been here. It was originally started by Peter Marciano, who was the boxer's brother, Rocky Marciano's brother, and the guy that bought it from him was trying to sell it, and it was close to home and would keep me around sports and the kind of things I've been around my whole life. So I bought it and thought I'd give it 5 years and see what happened, and 20 years later we're still here.
So what made you stay in that area? Was there something that you loved, the atmosphere, the fan base?
Well, I think I grew up in Kansas, went to Kansas State. We went back, my wife and I are both from Kansas. We went back there to see what the opportunities were when I got done playing, and kind of realized that my name carried a lot more weight here in New England than it did back in Kansas. When I was at Kansas State, the program was not very good, so I wasn't really anything special there, and I was here in New England. And once our oldest, we have 3 boys, and once our oldest started high school, we decided we weren't going anywhere. So that's what kind of kept us around here. It's outside of the snow and the cold, it's a great place to live.
Did you always want to play for the Patriots? And when did you realize that you would become a Patriot? Was it the draft day itself, or was it prior to the draft?
I really didn't know much of anything about the New England Patriots. I grew up near Kansas City and followed the Kansas City Chiefs my whole younger life. Loved the NFL, but didn't know a lot about New England. And back in my day, there was no ESPN, and they didn't cover the draft like they do now. So I was told I could possibly be drafted anywhere from the first round to not be drafted at all because of the teams that I played on. And I got a call about 5:30 on the first day of the draft from Coach Fairbanks here in New England, and said they were going to pick me with the next pick in the 5th round. And I said thank you very much, and came back here and didn't figure to make the team. They had 3 veteran quarterbacks, and we were told they were only going to keep 2 on the roster. And I was in the right place at the right time. One of the veterans retired, and Jim Plunkett, the Heisman Trophy winner, who was the starter, got hurt in the last preseason game, and I wound up the only guy left to be the backup. And the younger veteran started the first 4 or 5 games, didn't play very well, and they activated Plunkett off the injured reserve and cut the other guy, and I was backing up Plunkett, and he got hurt 2 weeks later, and suddenly I was halfway through my rookie year starting the quarterback in the NFL. It was right place, right time kind of thing.
What was the whole experience like for you going to the New England area, playing for a team you didn't really follow growing up? What was the whole experience like for you as a kid going in there?
It was an adjustment. Grew up in a small town in Kansas, Manhattan, Kansas, where Kansas State is not a real big town. There's a lot of people back here in the east, and so I had to get used to the traffic. And we had great fans here as long as you're winning. When like most East Coast towns, if you're not doing well, they let you know, and if you're doing well, they take real good care of you. So it was I was fortunate enough to hang on for 16 years, and it was a great experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
By your second season with the Patriots, you were a full-time starter. How did that feel for you? And was it a bit
it was a little bit surprising. They, as I said, I started the last half of my rookie year, and I wasn't a great passer at the time, but I could run, and they called me in the off season and said they were happy with what I'd done as a rookie, and they wanted to extend my contract and give me a little more money, and I thought that was pretty good. Back then, I think my rookie salary was $25,000, so anything else they wanted to give me was great. And after I signed the contract, then they traded Jim Plunkett to San Francisco and got 3 first-round draft picks and a couple second-round picks for him, and those picks turned out to be guys that played here for quite a while and led to our success in 1976. We went to the playoffs for the first time in 10 years, and then in 78 again we won the AFC East, and it was just a great bunch of guys we put together, and a lot of it had to do with Plunkett being traded to San Francisco.
Now, like you said, you were seen more as a running style of quarterback. Do you think you were one of the guys that changed how the quarterback position was viewed?
I played for Coach Fairbanks, who had come from Oklahoma, and they ran the wishbone down there, so he wasn't afraid to let his quarterback run, and that was good for me. I ran the ball well for about 4 years and then started having some knee problems, and one of the things I'm most proud of was I was able to adapt my game to become a pocket passer and still hang around for another 10 or 11 years. But as time went on, quarterbacks ran less and less. I think people started to realize that they were paying big money for some of these guys, and they needed to keep them healthy, and they didn't want them to run. But now you look at the game and you see them running in college, playing that spread offense, and a lot of them are starting to do it in the NFL again. So I think the game's kind of come back to a full circle in sort of a way.
How tough was that for you to adjust your game, being a scrambling quarterback, to more of a pocket passer? How tough is that from a football perspective to learn to become that pocket passer?
Well, I think if I hadn't had 4 years of being able to run, it probably would have been fairly difficult. But over that 4-year period, I learned our offense really well, and I knew how to get rid of the ball and not have to run, and so it wasn't a real difficult adjustment for me.
How is being a running quarterback different than being a regular quarterback as far as how defenses have to adjust?
Well, that's the thing. You put a lot more pressure on a defense when a quarterback can get out of the pocket and either throw something on the run or draw the defense up, open people up, or put the ball in his hand and go ahead and run up the field, picking up first downs. That's a lot of pressure on a defense, and they don't have to worry about that kind of thing when they know you're not going to get out of the pocket.
Was there any guy specifically when you would put the ball down and run it that you were afraid would hit you hard, or that put fear in you that would make you want to slide?
No, I never really felt that way. I had run the ball my whole life, and I never really worried about injury doing it. I slid one time down in Pittsburgh, the only time I ever slid in my career, and the defensive back didn't pull off, and hit me up under the chin, and the next thing I knew, I was in the shower by myself. He knocked me out. So I'm not a big fan of sliding.
Now, when in '76 you were ranked 4th among rushing touchdown leaders, and you had 12 touchdowns, and that is still the all-time leading leader for quarterback rushing touchdowns in the NFL. How does it make you feel to know that that record still stands, and NFL.com calls it one of the records that will never be broken?
Actually, Cam Newton broke it a couple years ago. He had 14, but he had 2 extra games. I don't think we were still playing a 14-game schedule. I think when I set the record, and then they went to 16 games, but it was like 35 years that I had it, and nobody broke it, and that was something special.
Now, do you feel, with a guy like Cam Newton, in an offensive his style and how you played, do you feel that you need a star wide receiver on your team to relieve that pressure of you running the ball constantly?
Well, it certainly helps if you've got good receivers, and I was fortunate enough to play with guys like Stanley Morgan and Harold Jackson, Darryl Stingley. We had some really guys that could get down the field, and I like to throw the ball deep, and we were pretty good at it. And then we had a pretty good offensive line. In 1978, we set a record for most rushing yards in a season by a team. Over 3,000 yards rushing. I don't think anybody will ever break that again because nobody runs the ball that much anymore. And I believe we only had 12 or 14 sacks that year, and that was partly because I could get away from the sacks and get out of the pocket and make something happen. So we played a different game than they're playing today.
Yeah, let's go into that a little bit more. Your offensive playbook with the Patriots, how is it different than today when I don't recall in the 80s time period that there would be an option being used? What was your playbook like with the Patriots?
Well, we ran the ball a lot, and our offensive line, John Hanna was one of them, as a Hall of Fame offensive guard. Our offensive line really worked at the running game. I would call the running play, but they would call at the line of scrimmage how they wanted to block that play, and there could be 3 or 4 different ways, depending on the defense, on how they would block it. I think today it's more just big, heavy offensive linemen that come out and block the guy in front of them, and the running back runs to the open hole. We took a lot more pride in working on our running game, and that's because we ran the ball so much. It's different today. It's they throw the short passes have become the running game. The little quick screens out to the wide receivers for 4 yards. That's how they run the ball today.
All right, as we're finishing up the interview here, final couple questions. For you, how did it feel to finally get a chance to play on the big stage and get into the Super Bowl game? What is that like for a player and that atmosphere?
It was unbelievable. It was one of the most exciting times of my life. The game didn't go very well. We got crushed by the Bears, who had maybe the best defense ever to play in the NFL. But the week leading up to it, the playoffs to get there, it was extremely exciting. And when you walked on the field for pregame warm-up, there was an electricity in the air that I had never experienced before and haven't experienced again. It just knowing that the whole world is watching you play that football game was really something special.
Now, the Patriots were considered a Cinderella story that season. Did you feel that you guys were underdogs going into that game?
Well, we were the first team to win 3 games on the road. We were a wild card team that year, and we beat the Jets, the Raiders, and the Dolphins all on the road. And we felt like we were on a roll and had a great chance to go into New Orleans and play the Bears and have a chance to stay in the game. And the Bears' defense, as I said, was great. We lost one of our tight ends, our starter Lynn Dawson, early in the game to injury, and a lot of our game plan was predicated on two tight end offense, so we had to change things on the fly, and it just didn't work. And the Bears deserved to win, and I just wish we'd have kept it closer.
All right, Steve, a final question for you. What accomplishment or stat are you most proud of in your career?
I guess one of the things I'm most proud of was I was able to last 16 years coming out of Kansas State and a program that wasn't successful at the time, and making the roster and hanging around for 16 years. I was pretty proud of that. And as I mentioned before, being able to adjust my game from a running quarterback to a pocket passer, I'm pretty proud of being able to do that too.
Thank you, Steve. We appreciated your time, and we appreciated gaining some insight and a look back on your career.
A unique QB perspective.
Yeah, very unique quarterback perspective. Thank you for joining us
Thank
tonight.
you, gentlemen. Have a great day.
You too.
Yep.
Thank you.
Happy
Bye-bye.
Halloween.
And we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
This concludes our podcast of Sports and Rants with Brent and Pants. Thank you for listening. Please follow us on Twitter at Sports and Rants. Like us on Facebook. Remember to subscribe to us on iTunes. And visit our website, www.sportsandrants.blogspot.com. It would help our rankings on iTunes if you rate and review our podcast. Thanks, and have a good day.